Over time, though, Mrs. Helen began noticing odd quirks in Leo's behavior. For one, despite being a puppy, he never barked, not even once. Instead of the usual playful yaps expected of a young dog, Leo made high-pitched, peculiar noises that sounded more like squeals than barks. "He's just a quiet dog," she'd reassure herself, though deep down, a slight unease started to settle in her mind. Each day, the silence became more apparent. Mrs. Helen vaguely remembered reading somewhere that Japanese Spitz dogs were usually vocal, and Leo's quietness felt more and more unusual. But rather than alarm herself, she decided to search the internet, where she found mixed opinions. Some said their Spitz dogs barked non-stop, while others described theirs as quieter. "Anibe Leo's just the exception," she reasoned. Another thing that caught her attention was Leo's fur. It was far thicker and shinier than that of other dogs of his breed. Under different lights, his coat even seemed to shift color slightly, which both fascinated and puzzled her. She tried to rationalize it. It's probably just a unique trait of his. However, her biggest worry surfaced with Leo's odd nighttime habits. While most dogs sleep peacefully through the night, Leo seemed to come alive after dark. Often she would find him quietly exploring the house, moving with an unnerving stealth. His movements were so smooth that sometimes he would appear out of nowhere, startling her. "He's like a little ghost," she joked to Annie on a call, though she couldn't shake off the slight unease that lingered beneath the humor. Leo's oddities didn't stop at his behavior. Mrs. Helen began to notice peculiarities during mealtime, too. For the first 3 months, Leo happily ate from his bowl, munching on his puppy kibble twice a day. But one day, seemingly out of nowhere, he began refusing the food Mrs. Helen put out for him. At first, she thought he might simply be bored with the flavor, that it might be time to switch things up a bit. She tried giving him adult dog food instead, but he showed the same lack of interest. That's when Mrs. Helen knew something wasn't quite right.